إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن عليا ولي الله أشهد أن عليا أمير المؤمنين وأولاده المعصومين حجج الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله وسلم.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله خالق الخلق باسط الرزق فالق الإصباح ذي الجلال والإكرام والفضل والإنعام الذي بعد فلا يرى وقرب فشهد النجوى تبارك وتعالى. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له إلها أحدا فردا صمدا حيا قيوما لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا. وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أرسله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله ولو كره الكافرون. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وترحم على محمد وعلى آل محمد وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد وتحنن على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت وباركت وترحمت وتحننت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. عباد الله، أوصيكم ونفسي بتقوى الله ونظم أمركم وصلاح ذات البين فإنها خير من عامة الصلاة والصيام. قال الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم: الذين قال لهم الناس إن الناس قد جمعوا لكم فاخشوهم فزادهم إيمانا وقالوا حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل فانقلبوا بنعمة من الله وفضل لم يمسسهم سوء واتبعوا رضوان الله والله ذو فضل عظيم. إنما ذلكم الشيطان يخوف أولياءه فلا تخافوهم وخافوني إن كنتم مؤمنين. The human being is composed of feelings and emotions. If you want to define a human being, you see that a human being is made up of many emotions and feelings, and that is what defines the human being. Of course, these emotions that we have and these feelings that we have, they have a primary purpose, and the purpose is to help us make better decisions in life. For example, I have the feeling of fear. Fear will help protect me in times of danger. Or for example, sometimes I feel a sense of happiness regarding something, then that is something that I will be more likely to make that decision and go forward and pursue that which makes me happy. Of course, feelings, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us feelings which help us make decisions, but at the same time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the aql, the intellect, and the power of reason. And it's the job of the aql and the reason to help navigate our emotions. A person who's controlled by their emotions may not always make the right decision. A person who's controlled and defined by the feelings that they have may not always make a healthy decision. This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, while He has given us the emotions and the feelings, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the same time has given us the aql to navigate these emotions, to deal with these emotions. And when a person loses control of their emotions, when a person does not have full control of their emotions, then you see they start making destructive decisions. Please, can you stop playing with put those away, please. So while we have the emotions, we have the aql, and we have to allow the aql to not take advantage. We have to allow the emotions to not take advantage and use and overcome us. And you see, sometimes it becomes very dangerous when a person, when a community, when a group of people, they allow their emotions to overcome them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes, for example, sometimes some people, the emotions of happiness and joy overcome them. They're always happy. People are suffering, people are dying, there's a war going on, people are displaced. They're always happy, they're always laughing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes groups of people that were punished and they were unaware because they're only thinking about their joy. People are suffering, the world is collapsing, and this person is thinking about what he's going to go out and eat or the football game and only things of joy. Allah talks about this. اقترب للناس حسابهم وهم في غفلة معرضون ما يأتيهم من ذكر من ربهم محدث إلا استمعوه وهم يلعبون. When the reminder of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes to them, they're playing. They're thinking of their fun. They allow the emotions of happiness and fun to overcome them, and they are unable to make good decisions. And you could find this with individuals, and you also find it with communities. You find it with groups of people. Some groups of people, they're always thinking of their fun. They're always thinking of their happiness, not caring about what's going on, about the suffering of others and what's going on. Another emotion that oftentimes controls people is the emotion of anger. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us emotions. Anger, sometimes it's useful. Sometimes with anger you could protect your principles and your values and your family. But when anger is taken out of control, when it's not guided by the aql, when it's not guided by the intellect, anger also becomes very dangerous. This is why Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says, إِيَّاكَ وَالْغَضَبْ فَأَوَّلُهُ جُنُونٌ وَآخِرَهُ نَدَمٌ. Be very careful of allowing anger to overcome you, because the first is junoon, it's madness, and آخِرَهُ nadam. At the end, it's going to be regret. A lot of times, people in a state of anger, they might do certain things that might lead them to destruct themselves, destruct their community, destruct their family, and ruin that which they have. But sometimes anger could be a good thing, especially if it's anger and ghadab fi sabilillah, in the way of God, in the way of your principles, in the way of your values, then that is a good thing. From amongst the Sahaba of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa there was a companion who used his anger in a positive way, and that was Abu Dhar al-Ghifari. Abu Dhar al-Ghifari, he came and he saw that the third Khalifa, during the time of Uthman, people were taking advantage of religion. And Abu Dhar al-Ghifari, he came and he protested, and he kept speaking and speaking and speaking until they kicked him out of Medina. Until the third Khalifa, Uthman, he kicked him out to Rabada. And Abu Dhar al-Ghifari, this great companion of the Prophet, one of the earliest Muslims, was kicked out and he died in the desert all alone. When he was leaving, the third Khalifa, he said no one is allowed to bid him farewell. No one is allowed to come and say goodbye to Abu Dhar. But Amir al-Mu'mineen and Imam al-Hassan and Imam al-Hussein, they came and they stood and they said goodbye to him. And each one of them gave him a few words of motivation. Amir al-Mu'mineen, he tells him, Ya Aba Dhar, إنك إنما غضبت لله عز وجل فارجو ما غضبت له. You were angry not for the sake of worldly benefit, not for your own personal gain. You became angry for the sake of Allah. You revolted and you spoke out for the sake of God. And this is what we say about Imam al-Hussein. As-salamu alayka ya thar Allah wa ibn tharih. It means you stood for the sake of God and for the sake of the principles. So Amir al-Mu'mineen tells him, Ya Aba Dhar, innaka innama ghadibta lillahi azza wa jal, farju ma ghadibta lah. إن القوم خافوك على دنياهم وخفتهم على دينك. They were worried about their dunya, but you were worried about your religion. So anger, sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's negative. But we have to allow our aql to take control of our emotions. And do not allow your emotions to control you. Another feeling, an emotion that many of us have. Today, many people have the feeling of anxiety and the feeling of fear and the feeling of worry and that sense of unsure of what's going to happen. You see that a lot of times, many people, they're controlled by that feeling. Many people, they allow anxiety, they allow fear, they allow stress to control their lives. In fact, according to studies, it is estimated that 31.1% of US adults experience any anxiety disorder at some point in their lives. So today there are many people, 31% of Americans, they experience this type of anxiety disorder. And sometimes having that fear or that anxiety, sometimes it could be good and sometimes it could be destructive. When it's good, it helps you anticipate danger, it helps you protect yourself. But sometimes when it is out of control, it leads people, when people have fear, that fear leads them to do certain things that are irrational. Today, there are some people, they're afraid to do good deeds. They're afraid to give sadaqah. They're afraid to practice their faith outside in public because they have this fear and anxiety. You see some Muslims in the masjid, they're Muslim and they practice Islam. The moment they leave, you see they hold a totally different identity because they're ashamed and they're afraid of revealing that identity outside. And some people are afraid to pray in public. Some people, they are afraid to practice their hijab. Some people are afraid to associate anything with their religion. You see that this is an irrational fear. You see that here, fear is controlling their life. They're allowing that feeling of fear to control their life. I've had some sisters, they come and they say, either my father or my husband, they force me to not wear the hijab out of fear. Because they're afraid, they come and they tell their wives, you don't wear the hijab. Why? This is when they allow fear to control and dictate their lives. Some people, they have a fear of poverty. Their whole life, they're living under the rizq of Allah. Their whole life, they've never slept a day hungry. Allah has kept sending them the rizq, but they're afraid of poverty. It's a fear that a lot of people have. This is why some people, they don't give charity, they don't help out, they don't give donations, they don't give sadaqah. Why? Because they're afraid what's going to happen tomorrow and what's going to happen in a year and what's going to happen in 10 years and in 5 years. The same Lord that has been giving you today and gave you yesterday and gave you last year and the year before that is going to continue to give you. So you see, this is a type of irrational fear when emotions overcome people. The Quran gives us examples, and this is something that is very common until today. Until today, you see many people that abort their children. In the past, they used to have children. The moment they find out the gender of the child, after the child is born, they would come and they would bury that child alive. وَإِذَا الْمَوْءُودَةُ قُتِلَتْ وَإِذَا الْمَوْءُودَةُ سُئِلَتْ بِأَيِّ ذَنْبٍ قُتِلَتْ. They used to come and bury a child because of fear of poverty. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَوْلَادَكُمْ خَشْيَةَ إِمْلَاقٍ نَحْنُ نَرْزُقُهُمْ وَإِيَّاكُمْ. Don't come and kill your children or be afraid of having a child out of fear of poverty. We will give you and we will give them. Today in the United States, how many abortions take place? How many people are afraid of having children? According to an institute, the Guttmacher Institute, 73% of abortions, the reason for the abortion, 73%, they say because they are afraid they cannot afford having a baby. So what is this? This is a fear of poverty. Because of that fear, people go and do something that is irrational. They come and they carry out irrational decisions. Another fear that sometimes people have, this is when emotions overcome people, is the fear of enemies. Today people are afraid of their enemies. Yes, we all have enemies, and sometimes fear is where it's supposed to be. It's there to protect you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given it to you. But sometimes this fear becomes irrational, and people, they let go of their identity, they let go of their honor, and they let go of their dignity because their life is defined by fear. However, in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes that a mu'min, a believer, is one that should not be afraid. Yes, there are certain things that I should be afraid for. There are certain things, sometimes it's rational to make decisions that preserve and protect my life, but we should not have irrational fear. Some people, they make erratic decisions and they're controlled by fear. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the mu'mineen in the Quran, their fear does not control them. الَّذِينَ قَالَ لَهُمُ النَّاسُ إِنَّ النَّاسَ قَدْ جَمَعُوا لَكُمْ فَاخْشَوْهُمْ فَزَادَهُمْ إِيمَانًا وَقَالُوا حَسْبُنَا اللَّهُ وَنِعْمَ الْوَكِيلُ. Allah describes the believers when they come and they tell them there are others plotting against you. The whole world is plotting and working against you. What do the mu'mineen do? They say, حَسْبُنَا اللَّهُ وَنِعْمَ الْوَكِيلُ. They say, I have God defending me. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is defending me, I turn to Allah. I allow God to be my defender. And what happens when a person does that? Allah says in the Quran, فَانْقَلَبُوا بِنِعْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَفَضْلٍ لَمْ يَمْسَسْهُمْ سُوءٍ. They will be in a ni'mah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they will not be harmed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect them. وَاتَّبَعُوا رِضْوَانَ اللَّهِ وَاللَّهُ ذُو فَضْلٍ عَظِيمٍ. And they follow the satisfaction, they receive the satisfaction of Allah, which is the greatest ni'mah that a person could have in their life. Who cares about living an extra year or having dunya and having power when you are getting the satisfaction of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And then Allah describes where that fear comes from. Where does that fear that a lot of people have, where does it come from? إِنَّمَا ذَلِكُمُ الشَّيْطَانُ يُخَوِّفُ أَوْلِيَاءَهُ فَلَا تَخَافُوهُمْ وَخَافُونِي إِن كُنْتُمْ مُؤْمِنِينَ. Shaitan instills fear. Shaitan instills doubt in the hearts of those who follow him. But those who obey God and those who follow Allah, they don't have fear of dunya. They have fear of disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They have fear of doing that which will bring the wrath and the punishment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in their lives. Otherwise, they're not afraid, and they do not allow shaitan to come and place that fear in their hearts. So you see, this is where emotions come into play. Emotions, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them to us. The emotion of happiness, the emotion of anxiety, the emotion of fear. These are necessary. Sometimes they're good when they're guided by the intellect, but when they're out of control, they make a person be erratic and do irrational decisions in their life that end up destructing their life and destructing the lives of others around them. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to strengthen our emotions and to make us be from those who allow our emotions to bring us positively to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and not away from Allah. Astaghfirullah li wa lakum. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Qul huwa Allahu ahad. Allahu samad. Lam yalid wa lam yulad wa lam yakun lahu kufuwan ahad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي يجيبني حين أناديه ويستر علي كل عورة وأنا أعصيه ويعظم النعمة علي فلا أجازيه. نحمده ونسبحه ونقدسه على آلائه ونعمائه. من يهد الله فهو المهتدي ومن يضلل فلا هادي له من بعده. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد وترحم على محمد وعلى آل محمد وتحنن على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت وباركت وترحمت وتحننت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم وصل على جميع الأنبياء والمرسلين والشهداء والصديقين وصل اللهم على أئمة المسلمين أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب وصل اللهم على الصديقة الطاهرة فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين وصل اللهم على سبطي الرحمة وإمامي الهدى الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة وصل اللهم على علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والحجة الخلف الهادي المهدي عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف وجعلنا من أنصاره وأعوانه والمستشهدين بين يديه. اللهم صل على محمد. As we are talking about emotions and feelings and how emotions and feelings are a part of every human being, no one could escape from their emotions. It's a part of your identity. But a mu'min, a believer, is the one who allows the positive dimension of their emotions stand out and shine. And a person who does not have very strong faith in Allah, they allow fear and they allow stress and they allow anxiety to dictate their lives. And when Allah describes a mu'min, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran and in the hadith of the Prophet and the Imams of the Ahl Bayt describe one of the qualities of a mu'min is the quality of bravery. And bravery comes from strength, inner strength, where a mu'min should not be afraid. A mu'min should not be worried. A mu'min should not always be in doubt. And this is something very important, especially in times where you are being tested, where your community is being tested, where your faith is being tested. This is the time to not shake and not waver. This is the time to be very strong and do not allow doubts and do not allow anyone to come and make you question your identity and question your beliefs. In a hadith from Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam, he says, Al-mu'min aslabu min al-jabal. Al-jabal yastaqillu minh. وَالْمُؤْمِنْ لَا يَسْتَقِلُّ مِنْ دِينِهِ شَيْءٍ. He says a mu'min is firmer and stronger than a mountain. And then he says, because even the mountain you could chip away from the mountain. The mountain, over time, you keep chipping away from it, you see it becomes flat. But a mu'min, no one could come and chip away from your faith. No one could come and take away from your iman and from your faith. And Allah describes in the verse that we recited, الَّذِينَ قَالَ لَهُمُ النَّاسُ إِنَّ النَّاسَ قَدْ جَمَعُوا لَكُمْ فَاخْشَوْهُمْ فَزَادَهُمْ إِيمَانًا وَقَالُوا حَسْبُنَا اللَّهُ وَنِعْمَ الْوَكِيلُ. When they come and they tell them, the whole world is against you. Be afraid, surrender. But the mu'min, the believer, فَزَادَهُمْ إِيمَانًا. In these difficult times, that's when their iman shines. In these difficult times, that's when they show their strength and their resilience. And they say, if I have God with me, then I'm not worried about anyone else. قَالُوا حَسْبُنَا اللَّهُ وَنِعْمَ الْوَكِيلُ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, Allah has made us numerous promises in the Quran that a mu'min is not afraid of this dunya. A mu'min is afraid of akhirah. A mu'min is afraid of Allah. أَلَا إِنَّ أَوْلِيَاءَ اللَّهِ لَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. The awliya of Allah, those who are close to God, they have no fear in their hearts. They are not saddened by what is going on because they have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because they see a very clear vision in front of them. أَلَا إِنَّ أَوْلِيَاءَ اللَّهِ لَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَكَانُوا يَتَّقُونَ لَهُمُ الْبُشْرَى فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ. The mu'mineen, they receive the bushra, they receive the good news, they see their place in Jannah, in this dunya and in the akhirah. And this is what we say about those who were slain in the way of Allah. The hadith of the Imams says that those who were slain in the way of Allah, when they fall to the ground, you see them falling on the rubble and falling on the dirt, but they are actually falling in paradise. And they see their place in Jannah during this life before the akhirah. So and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised that those who have that iman, they will live with dignity and they will live with honor and they will not have fear. Whereas those who are questioning their faith and those who are always struggling and those who are on the fence, you see that they will live a life of lack of dignity, lack of honor. There are certain things that give dignity and honor to a person, and there are certain things that take away dignity and honor from a person. One of them is fear. Fear. If someone has too much fear, it takes away their dignity. It takes away their karamah. It takes away their honor. Allah describes Bani Israel, the Israelites, with Musa alayhi salam. While they were just saved from Fir'aun, they were traveling, they met a group of people who they had to confront them. They had to fight them. And Musa is with them. The Prophet of God is with them. What do they tell him? قالوا يا موسى إنا لن ندخلها أبدا ما داموا فيها فاذهب أنت وربك فقاتلا إنا هاهنا قاعدون. They told Musa, you and your Lord go and fight. We're sitting here. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes how they were struck with dhillah. They were struck with humility and lack of dignity, and they were lost for 40 years as a result of their actions, as a result of their shakiness and their unwillingness. They were not willing to go and stand with Prophet Musa alayhi salam. My dear brothers and sisters, the Quran gives us these examples because the Muslim ummah is also falling in exactly the same way. Today you look at the Muslims, over 1.5, 1.6 billion Muslims, they could be divided into two groups. One group that has allowed fear to overcome them, anxiety to overcome them, where they have been totally stripped away of any dignity and any honor, where the enemy dictates their life. You do this, you do that, you spend your money here, this is what you do, this is what... And you find others who are not, they don't allow fear to control their lives. They stand brave and they resist and they have that strength. And subhanallah, subhanallah, subhanallah. You see that wherever they may be, those who have karamah, those who have dignity, they're inspired by the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Sunnis or Shi'as, those who have dignity, they are inspired by the Ahlul Bayt. You hear them in their words. You hear those who are resisting oppression. Even from the Sunnis, when they want to talk about dignity and karamah, they refer to Ali ibn Abi Talib. They refer to Imam al-Hussein. They refer to the day of Ashura. They refer to the hadith of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And this hadith, I heard it yesterday. And you see that people inspire and they take karamah from the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Yes, because the Ahlul Bayt, they're the ones who give us and inspire us to resist oppression and have that sense of honor and dignity. The hadith of Amir al-Mu'mineen, when he was going out to fight the Khawarij, some people, they came and they told him, oh Amir al-Mu'mineen, protect yourself. You need to protect yourself. لو احترست يا أمير المؤمنين. You should protect yourself. فقال أي يومي من الموت أفر. Which day? My life is defined in 2 days. Which day should I run away from? أيوم لم يقدر أم يوم قدر. One day has been destined that this is the day I die, and there's another day that I'm not going to die. If the day that I'm not going to die, no one could come and take my life on that day. That's the day that Allah has not written for me to die. No one could come and take my life on that day. And the day that I'm going to die, even if the whole world tries to protect me, no one's going to be able to protect me. So you see, the Ahlul Bayt, they inspire us to have that sense of dignity. Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib, when all of the Arabs of Quraysh, they fought and they waged a war against him. Before Islam, in the battles with Rasulullah, and then in the battles after. 30 years later, they waged another series of wars against him. Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says, Wallah, لو تظاهرت العرب على قتالي لما وليت منها. If all of the Arabs, they gathered to fight me, I would not turn back. I would not run away. You look at Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. You see that sense of bravery, that sense of strength, that sense of honor and karamah and dignity. Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says, ألا وإن الدعي ابن الدعي قد ركز بين اثنتين بين السلة أو الذلة وهيهات من الذلة. The enemy has given me 2 choices. Either live with disgrace, either be humiliated and taken my honor away from me, or face the thorns and face the swords. And then he says, I shall never take the path of humility. I shall never take the path of lack of honor. And you see that this was passed on from the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt to their sons and to the Shia. Look at Ali al-Akbar on the day of Ashura. He says, لا نبالي وقعنا على الموت أم وقع الموت علينا. We are not going to be afraid whether we go to death or death comes to us. Look at Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas alayhi salam. لا أرهب الموت إذا الموت رقى حتى أوارى في المصاليت لقى نفسي لنفس الطاهر الطهر وقى إني أنا العباس أغدو بالثقة ولا أخاف الشر يوم الملتقى. Says, I'm not going to allow fear to dictate my life. I'm not going to allow my emotions to come and control and take me away from doing that which is the right thing to do. My dear brothers and sisters, every human being is entitled to live a life of dignity. Every human being is entitled to live with honor. This is the way God created the human being. No person, no single person has the right to come and take away the dignity and karamah from a human being. And the moment a person does that, they try to take away the dignity and karamah from people. That is the one who is terrorizing. And today, we see this going on in Gaza, and we see it going on in Palestine. How many hospitals have been bombed? How many innocent people have been killed? How many people have been burned alive? We saw an image just a few days ago. A man, he has IV drip. He's attached to it, a young man attached to an IV drip, and he was burned alive. Is this not a Holocaust? They talk about the Holocaust. This is the Holocaust. And who's carrying out this Holocaust? It's being carried out by Israel, the Zionists, and supported by America. And there are no red lines for them. They're killing anyone in their way. They kept saying they're using human shields, and then they would bomb hospitals and they would bomb buildings, and then they see that their enemies are facing them in the front line. They're not using human shields. They're right in front of you, but you just use that argument to go and kill extra people, to go and kill more people and take over and illegally occupy land of others. My dear brothers and sisters, today these people, what are they supposed to do? A person who his family has been killed, he is living in the largest open air prison. They have no rights. They have nothing given to them. What are they supposed to do? The only option that they have is to resist and stand against the oppression and the injustice that is going on. Sooner or later, this suffering is going to end. and the whole world is going to know who was the one supporting the oppressor, who was the one who was bombing innocent people, and who were the oppressed, and who were those who were standing against oppression. Things are going to become clear. People are not going to remain in the dark forever. Eventually, people are going to read the history books, and they're going to see reality for what it is. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give aid and rescue those who have been oppressed and those who are suffering, and end the suffering wherever it may be in the world. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the reappearance of the Imam of our time. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to support and bring victory to the people of Palestine and the people of Lebanon and the people of Yemen and the mu'mineen and the believers wherever they may be across the globe. Astaghfirullah li wa lakum. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Inna a'tainaka al-kawthar fasalli li rabbika wanhar inna shani'aka huwa al-abtar. Let us raise our hands in dua. نسألك اللهم وندعوك باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم يا الله يا الله يا رحمن يا رحيم يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات. تابع اللهم بيننا وبينهم بالخيرات إنك مجيب الدعوات إنك غافر الخطيئات إنك على كل شيء قدير. وصلى الله على محمد وآل محمد والفاتحة. اللهم